to Gwinnett County Public Library. My name is Gina Duvernay, and I am the Adult Services Manager. And my colleague Amy here, Amy Perry, we are from the Adult Services team, and we love to put these events together. So we're so glad you came out this Saturday. We're trying a new time, and so it seems to be working. Today, we're joined by Read It Again Books. Wait, there you are. With all of the beautiful copies there. So please feel free to browse. We also have moderating tonight's author talk, Amy Cobb. Amy, right there. What's it? Okay. Amy Cobb is a wife, mother, nurse practitioner, and an avid book reviewer. And she will be in conversation with our featured author of the evening, Lo Patrick. Lo Patrick is a former lawyer and current novelist living in the suburbs of Atlanta. Her debut novel, The Floating Girls, which over there with Read It Again Books, earned a star review from Publishers Weekly, was a finalist for the Townsend Prize for Fiction, and was a Reader's Digest editor's pick. Let's give them both a round of applause.
Oh.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming this evening. I wanted to start the talk by just a little bit about you, your background, your writing process before we dive into the book. So do you have a time of day or a location in your home where you like to get your writing done?
Yes, I write all day, usually while my children are at school. So summers can be a little bit challenging, which we just got through a summer, but I did it. So I usually write, they go off to school, and then I spend the whole time there at school in front of my computer in my home office. And I used to go and write in coffee shops and I enjoyed being out in the world more when I was working. Yeah. But now I'm, home in stretchy pants, and I'm out in the world more as my kids have gotten older, so I don't need that as much during the day. So I'm home. Right. And I look worse for wear, and I'm proud of it.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Whatever it takes.
Yes.
And then do you like to write in silence? Do you have a little soundtrack playing, or are you?
Both. More in silence now. I used to always write with music playing, but now I tend to need it to be quiet, at least during that initial writing time. And when I'm editing or going back through it, I can have music playing, but I definitely will have a few songs that are kind of my soundtrack to get me into the mood of the story. And I shared one with my editor not long ago. I was like, this is the song I'm listening to. And then after I sent the email, I felt kind of stupid for doing that. I was like, she's going to think I'm crazy, or she's not going to think this is this, but she gave me a good response.
Yeah.
She made me feel okay about sending that.
Right. I'm sure whatever it takes to get those juices flowing.
Yeah.
As far as your writing process, and then we'll jump into the book, but just a little bit more about that. Are you more of what we call a plotter or a pantser? And for those that don't know, a plotter is somebody who kind of has an outline and they know where the book is going from the very beginning. And a pantser would be somebody who writes more by the seat of their pants.
Yeah. So I'm an inveterate pantser, like absolute no outline, no planning. I like to live my life that way. I like to envision myself writing like my hair flowing behind me and, like in a convertible or something. So no, I cannot do, I even have friends who do like tent poles. So it's not a real outline, but they'll set up like significant points and then write around them. And I can't even do that. Like I gotta sort of write aimlessly for a long time and get to know my characters and get to know who's staying and who's leaving and what's going to happen with them and more about where they live. And then probably, I would say like 40 or 50,000 words in, I'll kind of know what it's about. And then it will require me to go back to the very beginning and fix everything that I screwed up that does not, yes.
Structure comes in.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So it's not an efficient way to work, but it's the only way that I know how. And I have tried one time to do an outline. And I was, like 3 minutes into the outline. I was like, that's it, we're never outlining again. Like that, we're done. So I am a big pantser, and I really believe, and I think more people who want to write should be pantsers. Because I think people get hung up on trying to, order it out before they actually start writing. And then they don't give themselves any grace, like in their writing. They're like, well, I'm supposed to get to, the second Roman numeral, the little a now, and I'm not there yet. And that just to me would take all the fun out of getting into the story.
That leads to my next question. I did not realize you were an attorney
Oh,
or attorney.
former attorney.
Great. So do you think writing is your rebellion?
The way I write might be. Yeah, well, the first event I ever did, they introduced me as a former author, current lawyer. And I was like, former author? I was like, oh, I hope not. Like, yeah, I was like one and done. No, I actually, if I'm scattered and fly by the seat of my pants now, I was so much like that before I went to law school that I would not have been able to complete a novel. You know, I would like, you know, way too out there and kind of floating around. So law school definitely taught me to think linearly and to keep myself in order and to finish tasks and to concentrate. I always tell people that that's where I learned to concentrate. Because prior to that, you know, I'm definitely a like shiny objects person, and you know, oh, this person looks interesting to talk to, and I'll run over there. And so it gave me some focus.
I'm sure you probably learned some things too that might have led to some of the storylines in your books, or
Yes, or how things work. My dad is an attorney, so sometimes if I'm not exactly sure if what I'm saying is legally sound and I don't feel like I've gotten to the bottom of it, I'll just email him. Does that sound right? You know, and he'll be like, hell no, or yeah. So, yes, it did. And, you know, studying criminal law, and I did an internship at the Gwinnett County DA's office, actually, for my Gwinnett crew between my first and second year of law school. And that definitely made me not want to practice criminal law and want to write stories with a criminal element that are pure fiction. No one in them is real.
no one's injured.
No one, this didn't happen to anyone that I had to look at any photos of or meet. So yes, it was like kind of had a weird effect in both ways. That was too much, but I definitely like to have the crime element in my stories, as long as it's not true.
Yes. Well, it shows. So let's just dive into this book then. Do you want to give a brief synopsis for anybody in the audience that has not read it?
Yeah, so we have our main character, Danielle Greer, and we meet her, and she is a mother of 4 living in her childhood home in North Georgia. And her daughters are out playing, as my friend likes to say, out playing in the road, and they discover remains behind the house. And she immediately, a part of her past that was very traumatizing and very significant, very profound, comes to the forefront because she has a good idea of who this could be and what this is tied to. And it kind of goes into her entire story of when she was scouted to be a model in New York City and this romance that she had during that time. And pretty much all of it ended in tragedy with some unknowns. And that sort of leads into the book and Danielle's story.
Thank you. For this book in particular, did you start with that setting of North Georgia or the plot of like remains, as you say, or did you start with your main character, Danny? Like what was the inspiration for the start of this book?
Always the character. So I always say it's like schizophrenia, but I guess I shouldn't say that because maybe people are schizophrenic and I'm offending them or something. But I would be like proud to be schizophrenic if it's working for me. But it's like I hear a voice of somebody who's kind of telling me the story and laying it out there for me and telling me what happened to them. And so it always starts with my character. And then I just ride with them. I write all sorts of superfluous stuff. There are all sorts of things that end up coming out later, but it's kind of like getting to know you time. And then, they tell me where they live. They tell me what their house looks like. They tell me what their family is like, why they are the way they are, why they tick, what makes them tick. And so it always starts with, and it usually have a female protagonist. So in this case, it starts with Danny and, this idea of her.
Well, speaking of Danny, we get to know Danny when she's young, and her ticket out of North Georgia is this modeling in New York City. Do you have a personal tie to the modeling industry? Did you have to research that? What made you choose modeling as her way out?
Well, and she didn't even know she wanted out. That's kind of one of the important parts of the book is that at her age, she is searching for some sort of identity, and it seems like everything that's presented to her is like, well, that will be my identity, and that will be what I'm into. And so And I say in the book, it's dangerous to tell a young girl that her looks are going to be her life, because then, you believe it, and then what happens when that fades? But so I did work in the modeling industry in Los Angeles for a couple of years, and I was very taken with it, not the industry necessarily, but the people. You will never meet more characters, and it's all of these young people. I focused on the female side in this book, but young men model as well, that are plucked from like obscurity all over the world, not just the United States, but everywhere. And they're usually like someone comes up to them somewhere, or it's suggested over and over again that they should be trying to model. And so it's every background you can imagine, literally. And they're all there, and they're trying to do this thing, and it's a really sophisticated business, very worldly people, and fashion and art, and everybody is so like 5-star in every way. And then the girls are from, some like village of 14 in Poland, and it's just a really interesting juxtaposition. And I think it messes with people's heads. And the girls, the models are all at a very fragile age. And I just found the whole thing fascinating, and kind of what the metamorphosis that takes place when someone is taken out of their environment and put in that environment, and then expected to kind of perform.
And you chose New York City over LA, for example. Do you have a certain tie to New York City yourself, or you just wanted to?
Well, LA, I mean,
Explore that.
I don't know. Has anyone in here ever been a model in LA? So so LA is kind of like where models go to die. That's not, I don't want,
Yeah.
New York is like by far a bigger fashion city. So I wanted to make it where, she was being sold the real deal dream.
The best of the best.
Like you're going to be modeling in Houston, Texas. It's going to be huge. No, like I wanted her to be, like you're going to New York, and you're going to be with the best of the best. And they kind of try to sell her this, and she believes it. So,
Well, speaking of modeling for the best of the best, her agent in New York is quite interesting, quite eccentric. Claudia, did you have an inspiration for her character? Did you?
all of the women I met in the modeling industry when I was working in it, they were, they're talk about characters, women and men. I mean, it is, I could have written 14 books about my 2 years in that office. Just so many really over-the-top people, and they're well-traveled, they're well-educated in certain areas, and they're in the business of flesh. It's just the way they talk, the way they think. It is so, I really thank God I did not end up doing it for my whole career, because I think it would have to warp like everything about the way you live.
Images, everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And
materialism.
And just kind of people as commodities, and well, we can make money off this person, we can't. And it's ruthless. It's ruthless. It's like people come in and they're like, well, thanks so much for coming. It's tough.
Well, you presented it well in the book, showing the ups and downs of the industry and Danny's journey, so I appreciated that. Speaking of other characters, Benji, I love that his last name is Law, considering he's such a bad boy.
Yeah.
Was that intentional?
No, I just thought that name was so just the kind of name that
Bad boy.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
like a girl, oh, Benji Law. And he's such a bad boy, and just so apathetic to everyone else's feelings, to the legal system, to, everything. He just did whatever he wanted and kind of flitted through life like someone would in a small town. So he ends up in New York with her for a little bit, but he's from her really small town in North Georgia, and he's just your typical bad boy, not really in school anymore, kind of absent parents. And of course, she's just riveted. And it is nonsensical, but all of those relationships are nonsensical. Yes. Like those never, like, oh, I see what she sees in him. Like, no, you don't. He's a wreck, and it's, for her, it was trying to reclaim something from home. She was all over the place and where she should be and where she wanted to be, and what she was supposed to be. And so he was at home, and it was just like, oh, well, this will be, like growing up, and she was just very confused.
Well, speaking of like his parents, you do show some of small town America. You show some addiction, some drug use, some poverty. And what's interesting is
you know, Danny's mother thinks that you're only going to get those things in the city, but you're showing, I love that you represented small town America we have the same problems.
Well, amen to that. I really appreciate that you picked up on that, because that was part of the problem with Danny and her mom. Because her mother thinks everything bad is coming from this move to New York, when really the worst thing going on with Danny is her relationship with this kid back in their hometown. And so it's kind of like the mom blames this whole New York move and, you know, the moral decay and you're losing all your values, but the real problem is at home. And that is very confusing for her as a parent to, you know, how does she address that and how does she, you know, pull her out of that? And maybe it's better she's in New York if she's away from this kid. So it's a very, I think, a really interesting part of the story.
I think so too, for sure. As far as Danny herself as a mom, because we have the timelines of when Danny's a young woman and then when she's a mother and her kids are 10, 8, 7, and 5. And me reading as a mother, Danny seems pretty aloof, kind of checked out to being a wife and mother. I love that you did portray that, because I think in fiction we often see super moms or very neglectful moms, and like that mediocre mom in the middle is not often represented. So do you have any inspiration for that? Did you just want to show her?
No, bless you for that, because I do try in my books to be thought-provoking and not necessarily really one way or the other. I think sometimes the characters are not, they're not a hero, they're not Snow White, and they're not like the villain, you know, they're somewhere in between where I think most people live.
Yes.
And so my inspiration for her was this Arrested Development. You know, she had to do something after the modeling career didn't work out, and I think she was depressed, you know, and so she got married and had these kids, and this was kind of what she was doing with herself, but she was never really got over the experiences that she had when she was younger. They were a little bit too profound, too significant, and she just went back into the small town and got married.
Crawled
and
into herself.
Didn't really work any of it out. And so, you know, I think she was trying, but she was very detached, I think, you know, as just a person generally.
Well, as a reader, I loved seeing that because, again, we do see the fiction more than we see real life.
Yes.
So that was good.
I've seen lots of people like her, and, you know, I wouldn't give them an award or anything, but I certainly can see who they are and
why they got there.
What they're carrying around with them. And
her husband is a juxtaposition to her, and you mentioned he's from South Georgia. She's from North Georgia. I don't know if anybody's from South Georgia in the room, but you mentioned, you know, that he's used to like clean lines and everything matching up, and then she's just kind of got this reckless background.
Yeah, she's sort of, you know,
loosey-goosey.
this languid, like, you know, and he's from this very, of course you think that he picked her because she was so beautiful. And, you know, that's what she was picked in her whole life. She was kind of, well, she's so beautiful, you know, and so she'll look great next to me. And that, you know, what they had in common, I'm not really sure. The kids, maybe, you know, so, yeah. Jasper, which is the town in North Georgia, and he was from South.
And he's from South
Georgia. Little, you know, just a little Georgia, nod to Georgia all over the place.
And then she also has a friend or foe from her same hometown, Katie Benson, who's a cop in New York City, and her mom kind of sends Katie to check on Danny. In the book, Katie seems very buttoned up. You kind of make her likable, but it's like, can we trust her or not?
Well, she's keeping an eye on Danny, and Danny doesn't want her to. And I really enjoyed writing about that, like when Katie comes to see her and she's trying to act too busy and too important, and she doesn't have time for Katie. And, you know, but Katie's experience of New York is this more classic, like moving there and doing all the tourist stuff. And Danny's kind of like, God, I haven't done any of that. I'm just here trying to go to parties and trying to impress all these people. So Katie is constantly this mirror in front of Danny. Every time they're together, Danny doesn't feel very good about herself for one reason or another. And it's because Danny is the less less of a mess person from home who's, she moved to New York. She always wanted to be a cop in New York. And Danny's up there like, wearing bras and, lingerie ads and stuff. So she's always, I don't know if you've ever had somebody, but every time you encounter them, you end up leaving with like a little bit less self-esteem, and so I think.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I think that, if it's for all the reasons that Danny doesn't want to, she doesn't want to be like that anyway, but it always chips away a little at her worth. That she's not really doing any of these noble, great things that Katie Benson is doing. And then she hasn't seen her in years, and they run into each other because they find the remains behind Danny's house. And it's like, this does it have to be this woman again?
Right, here she is again.
Yeah, so I very much enjoyed writing that. So.
And I really enjoyed the timeline of the story being like 2003, where we have cell phones, but we're pre-social media. So you have your young woman, Danny, your young woman, Katie. There's another young woman, Louisa, that comes into the mix from Kentucky. And what's interesting is Danny is only in New York, a few months before she's then told, oh, show Louisa the ropes and kind of be her big sister. And to me, that was a sign of the times. 20-something years ago, our parents would have done that, whereas now we have more of these helicopter parents and everybody's tracking locations and just a different sign of the times.
Yes, and I tried to put, Danny is picked up, and in the beginning they're like, well, everybody likes this real honky-tonk look right now, and Danny's like, what? And her mother's totally offended, because they're saying this country look is in, and so they bring in this other girl, and she's from Kentucky. And the New York modeling people are like, well, she's from Kentucky. Of course you guys will get along. You're from Georgia.
You must know each other.
Yeah, you must know each other. Don't you know her?
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of that kind of dismissal of their origins, and and Danny's mother takes it very like, what are you saying? But Danny instead internalizes it that she needs to get cooler.
Right.
And that she needs to have, she needs to shed all that and stop saying things like fixin' and everything so that she can fit in there. And I actually talked to, she was a big supermodel back in the 90s, and I kind of rolled the dice because I wanted to make sure some of the things that I was saying, because I did not work in the modeling industry in New York, were accurate. And I emailed her name is Trish Goff, and she wrote me right back, and we had a really great conversation where she kind of, she said that she lost her accent as soon as, because she was from North Florida, which, it might as well be Georgia. Not really, but okay.
Close
Enough. And she just talked about that, like going to these photo shoots, and everyone there was, talking about these, the Michelin star restaurant and this, and they flew here in the jet, and she's like from, Ocala, Florida or something like, and she wanted to speak differently. She tried to dress like they dressed, act like they acted, tried to pretend she was interested in all the things that they were interested in. And that's really a head trip for, I think she was 18,
And I think about those times pre-social media, we still had comparison. It was music videos and magazines and, more print media than it was our kids today that have it all in their phone, in their hand.
Yes.
But it's still the same.
Yeah.
We're all still trying to be enough.
Yeah, and comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. And I think that when you get into like an industry like the modeling industry,
that's all it is.
All you're doing is comparing yourself to everyone else.
Well, I noticed a lot of nature in your writing, whether it was animals you were referencing, a hawk, a bird, the soil. Are you an outdoorsy person? Okay.
Big time. And I find Georgia to be, in the natural world, one of the more underrated places to live, because I've lived all over the country, and my husband is from overseas, and I just think this is such an incredible place if you love to be outdoors. We have it all and more, and weird stuff, and we do. We have
mountains, ocean,
and weird looking dirt,
yeah.
and Spanish moss down south, and it's just a fascinating place. It's so many different. The Piedmont, and then the plains area, and so yes, so I am, and I like to always include my ode to Georgia nature in all my books. Even if I'm writing about real ugly stuff, I like to plug in there.
Oh, yeah.
Some good stuff.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
And Danny's relationship with money and importance
Yeah.
comes to play, obviously, with the comparison, but she's really proving it mostly to her family, it seems, back home. And, like you said, she's too busy. She's got to go to this shoot and this call, but in real life,
She's sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. And yeah, it's just that time in a person's life. I mean, I moved to Los Angeles when I was 19. And so I kind of know, I wasn't ever trying to prove anything to my parents because they were like,
they knew better.
yeah,
right?
well, yeah, they were like, oh, please. But, that trying really hard to make your way, like I'm a grown up, I do this, and I call the shots. And it's really hard to do that when you're depending on people or, they're like, get a job. And you're just, I have a job, and then she comes home and says she's going to work with her dad. And, she's just so confused.
She's lost.
She's so confused. So give her a break if you read the book. She's,
Yes.
She's very confused. Yeah.
Well, one of the parts, even though Benji is a bad boy, I think you portray that summer love and that first love really well. Was that fun to write? Have you written first love before?
I've never written anything about love because I'm not very romantic.
Cold heart.
Yeah, cold. Just talk about aloof. Yeah, my husband would be like, "Oh God, there's romance in this one." I don't know. We'll believe that when I see it. No, it was fun to write because I could just see him. I could see him so
Motorcycle
clearly.
Guys, if you haven't read the book.
Yeah, I could just see him so clearly. And all of his, he, every way that he reacts to her, I could just see, she thinks she's really getting somewhere. I mean, he's just having fun. He doesn't even, it'd be one of those things where she thought they shared some amazing moment and he'd be like, huh? But he wasn't mean. He was just,
Young.
I'm going along for the ride, girlfriend.
Yes.
And everybody around her was like, can't you see that? This is not a serious relationship. And she couldn't. So.
And she does. She tries to prove the relationship to her family.
Yes.
Her work, her money. She's really just trying to prove not only to her family, but to herself, it seems.
That she's a grown up and she's got
Yes.
this and,
Well, I don't know if you thought about younger readers being able to read this, but I appreciated that a younger reader could read this.
I've heard that a lot, that it was a good young adult read, which is kind of cool because I did not intend for that, but
As a
I'll
mom
take
of
it.
teens,
Yeah, I'll take it.
approved.
Yeah,
yes.
okay, cool, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One part I found interesting, she is aloof in her motherhood, as we've said. She said once her kids were the age they are now, which again is 10, 8, 7, and 5, she's getting a break, which I found hilarious.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if you were just plugging in further that she's not really dialed in on her children.
Well, she isn't. She takes them to the ballet thing. She's kind of in and out, and she's kind of, she's tired, or she's listening to her music, or she's. It's more the idea of her that I had was that she was waiting for something to happen. As a mom.
I think you're right, or in her life.
Yeah,
in
just
general.
kind of they did this, and now
What's next?
what's the next part? And so I think that she just didn't see it as, her duty to dive in with these kids. It was more like, well, they're there. And yeah, my friend, that he is also an author, he said that they're running around in the street, so that's the kind of mom she is. But I call it arrested development because I do think that happens to a lot of people who are plucked out of their development and kind of placed somewhere. And then it's like, what's supposed to happen to this person? Because they can't go back.
Right.
You can't go back in. Never mind, and then she tried a little because she went to college. That's where she met her husband. But I don't know that she ever fully grew up. She pretended to grow up really early and then never actually did it. And having the kids and everything didn't make her grow up
Exactly.
like she might have thought it was going to.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the other parts of the book I love is you have these one-liners. And I just wondered, are these family passed down? So one is money can win any argument. No one can disagrey with it. You just have these witty little one-liners.
That's not I just said that. I mean, but it's true. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the cold hard truth,
It is
isn't
true.
it? Yeah.
It is true. Well, I had several Kindle highlights. I'm like, oh man, she's witty, clever. I loved it.
Thank you so much, Amy.
The name of her small town. Do you want to go into Pressville? Why Pressville?
Well, I make up all the names of my books because my first book, The Floating Girls, is about like just a real dump, like a real shithole. And I talked so much shit about it in the book that it could not be a real place. And so I decided just to avoid, ever someone, that's my hometown, God. So I just make up the names. And so Pressville, I don't know where that came from.
Well, it's a pressing town.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's some pressure, so I thought, that might have been intentional.
It wasn't, but I even let my son pick out, he came up with the name for my next book, the name of the town.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, we'll get to that when we
Yeah.
wrap up. I can't wait to hear what's next. Let's see. The Weeping Willow story, was that passed down from your family, or did you come up with that, or is that
I
a
just came up
known
with it.
thing?
The crying trees.
Yeah. Do you want to just share that little
don't.
nugget?
I don't remember exactly. Doesn't her dad tell her that?
Her dad or grandfather, that when weeping willows are shedding their leaves or whatever, that they're crying.
They're crying.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
their
what-
lost children.
Their lost children, yeah. Well, because he's at that age. Her dad is this kind of, I think in the beginning I say he's surrounded by thongs or something. He's got a wife and 4 daughters, and it's
Yeah.
just like a lot of feminine energy in the house. And he, they're all at that age where they're sort of moving on. And so I guess that's a story that he told her about. The trees are crying. They're called weeping willows because they cry when they lose their leaves, like when my children go away. And he's sort of portrayed as this like, kind of doesn't
her parents were kind of
ineffectual, but he's not. It's just the mom is such a ball buster that
true.
Yeah, so
True. Well, do you want to tell us what you're working on next?
yes, so I've got a book coming out, I believe next summer. I don't know the date yet, and I'm assuming that it's next summer, called The Sins of Summer Daughters, and it is set in Middle Georgia, and
Cover the whole state.
I'm covering the whole state, and trying to do it very authentically. So you just email me if I get something wrong and you're from one of these regions. But a kind email would be appreciated. But and it's just about a grandmother whose granddaughter is involved in a murder, and the grandmother is trying to help her granddaughter through this, and at the same time reliving an experience from when she was about her granddaughter's age, growing up in that same town. And so
Sounds
that's all
good.
I'm going to say, because I don't know, we're not fully through the editing phase, but yeah.
Well, just so you know, we didn't want to give any spoilers, so there are the remains
Yes.
that are revealed at the very beginning of the book, and you do get your questions answered by the end of the book. But we did not want to.
I hope I didn't.
I don't
say
think we
anything
did,
that
yeah.
So
you have to read the book to find out who
thank you.
who the bones belong to.
yeah, bones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think I'm ready for audience questions, and I don't think we're going to pass the mic. You can either just speak from your seat if anybody has any questions, any audience. Yes, ma'am.
Not just with this book, but take the other 2 as well, put them, line them up. The covers are beautiful.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
do we pick any of that?
They send it to me and say, "Do you like this?" And I always say yes. I have a lot of author friends who are more, as I like, discerning with, I wish that this would get moved over. I don't like that. I do like this. I leave it to the pros. I can barely write my name. I can't do any of this. So like, what would I offer? So I usually, when I open them, I'm usually very happy. And I wanted a motorcycle on the front of this book. That was my only feedback, because Benji rides a motorcycle. They were trying to capture more the essence of the thing, not this very specific thing of him on the motorcycle. So, no, normally I'm very taken with them as well, and I feel very lucky that someone is so good at doing this and has
I
put
name
this together.
attached to them when I see a cover, I'm like, that's cool.
Oh, well, I thank you very. I think that is what they're going for, is to have them be sort of similar enough that you gravitate toward them. So thank you. Yeah, they're very good at it, and I just feel lucky that they do it for me. So
And I actually don't have a real principle. I was trying, is it LJ or is it Players? You know, in my mind,
yeah,
I'm trying to figure out which one it is.
you'll
So.
never know. It's an amalgamation. It's, you know, I'm a eavesdropper, people watcher. It's my favorite pastime. So, you know, anywhere I can do that, listen. You know. But thank you for that. I'll pass that along.
You tell them the
Covers.
covers
Yeah.
are right.
Thank you.
Other questions for Lo?
Have several, but I'll take my turns. So when you're, a couple questions about process, do you use like a specific, I know some authors use Scrivener, do you just do Word? What?
I
Yes.
use Pages, which is like the cheap free one on Apple, and then when I send it to my agent or my editor, I always, and I have been with my agent now for almost 10 years, and every time she writes back, I can't open this in Pages. And so, yeah, so every,
Do not recommend.
yeah, so and my editor, can you please send it in Word? I mean, I have like probably 40 emails from each of them. I cannot open this in Pages. So, so I just use, no, I do not use any sort of organizational. I do have friends who do and they swear by it, but I cannot, I'm like a don't tell me what to do kind of person. So even if it's like the computer software is like, you should put the title here. I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna put the title there. I don't want the title there. So I cannot use anything with any sort of parameters. And I don't recommend that. I mean, who wants to be the jerk? But I am what I am. So you have another question?
I have several.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of time, like how long does it take you, not each day writing, but like how long does it take you to write a book? You've written 3 now?
Well, I've written a lot. I didn't talk a lot about how I got started, but I do usually like to share this because is anyone here a writer or an aspiring writer? Yeah. Okay, so I love to share this because I've heard that it's really great to hear it. I wrote 13 books before I got an agent. I submitted them all under different pen names, and The Floating Girls was the book that got me, my agent, and then eventually sold to a publisher, which took almost 2 years. So I've written a lot of books that never saw the light of day, that were just scrapped. But I usually write about 2 books a year. I do write very quickly, though inefficiently. But I think I work quickly. It's just not the smartest way to work. But so if you are submitting, keep submitting.
Takes for agents or
Yeah.
publish? To
What agent? I mean, that's what I did because I wanted a traditional publishing contract, because I was telling Amy in the green room that I did not want to have to handle any of the marketing. I have plenty of friends who've done indie and they've done very well, but they do their own marketing, their own everything online, and like I really just can't do that. I can barely keep an Instagram account like open, much less like try to do, So yeah, so if you need encouragement, people who wrote 13 books and were denied every time can still get published. So yeah, it just keep knocking. It's, and writing is just like sports or anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. So really, in some regards, I think they were all doing me a favor by turning me down, because they just made me write more and I got better every time. So
That's your TED Talk.
that's my, yeah. I go out there and do my TED Talk.
That was great.
Oh, well, thanks. So I really do like to share that, because I've had a lot of people come up after these things and say, I'm an aspiring writer. It was so nice to hear
I
that.
think it's great.
Yeah, no, I was definitely not an overnight publishing. No, keep at it. Keep
But
going.
perseverance, I think that is great. I mean, because after 13, you could have anywhere along the way said,
I'm out.
I'm out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I told my husband when I was in law school, I don't think I want to be a lawyer. I think I want to be a writer. And he was like, oh God, someone shoot me. And so I told him I will take it, if you can support me with this and we can make this work, I will take this very seriously. And so I treated it like a job, and I just kept doing it until, I was just not going to, out of, respect for him and our situation, not just going to one day be like, you know what, that's it, never mind. I think I'm going to be a DJ now. But I do want to be a DJ, but that's another story. But I took it as like, this is what I'm doing. And so, you know, everyone else will get on board at some point. Everyone else is going to agree that this is what I'm doing. So, yeah.
I was curious about, you mentioned 19 when you went to LA. So I was curious about sort of the timeline of your leading up to your authorship.
I just had all sorts of like, you know, crazy. I worked in the entertainment industry. So I lived out there and then I moved to New York. I was kind of Rolling Stone, gathers no moss. And then my dad and my older brother are lawyers and they, you know, thought they were such big shots. And I was like, you know, I'll go to law school. And so just to show them that I could and take the bar and pass the bar and everything. So I did that. And then it was, you know, law school will make you, you hear a lot of people like, oh, I regret going. I do not at all. Like it made me a real person. You know, I got my feet on the ground and like, you know, was around real people who were doing real work that actually mattered and was very, you know, it was like a serious place with serious people. And I, you know, I'm not a terribly serious person. I'm very silly and kind of, but those types of people can do serious things. And so it was kind of a nice way to see that I could use my more creative, kind of whimsical way, but actually do something with it that was, you know, significant, hopefully not just to me. So it was a great experience for me. So that kind of changed everything. Once I did that, I wanted to write.
So did you practice law?
Very, very briefly and minimally. They play it up in my bio. It's always like, lawyer, you know, and then I'm like forced to like explain, I didn't do a whole.
Kidding.
Yeah. You know, I am licensed, so like if we all trip and fall or something on the way out of here, then we could, you know, I'm sure we could help each other. But, so I really didn't, because I was in law school, you know, I had my epiphany in the law library, like when I was supposed to be studying, that I was kind of writing some fiction stuff. My dad actually came across something that I wrote my first year of law school. And I was like, boy, you know, this would be really fun if I did this all day, you know, and so my sweet husband was like, okay, I thought I was marrying a lawyer, but yeah, and an out of work author sounds just as good, I guess. So.
Other questions? Yes.
How difficult is it to pick a title for the books?
I don't get to pick my titles. Okay, well, so I do. All of these books have my titles, but I get outvoted.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what did it think called?
This one was called The Year of Sirens, which, thank you, it was an excellent title.
Yeah.
Okay, and this was the only time so they make you do, this is how my publisher works. We do a list of titles, and then we start narrowing it down. And The Year of Sirens made it to round 2 and then got knocked off. And every time they send me, I just kept adding it at the bottom. Like, maybe they won't notice, or maybe somebody will vote for it. And so that was the only time that I was even sort of pushy about, you know, because I thought that was a great title. I still do. But, you know, they do focus groups and I've met people since my first book who work in publishing. And I've told them what my titles were, and they've always been like, oh, no, that couldn't, because of A, B, C, D. There's always something that, my second book I called Youngblood, and which I also thought, and this, she owns a bookstore in North Carolina called Cleary's. It's great if you're ever up there. And she was like, no, because everybody would think that was the vampire section. She's like, there are all these things that will immediately pull you to something, and they have to watch out for that, because they're trying to sell the book to an intended audience, you know. So, so that's another thing that they send me, and, you know, I'm usually happy. They're the professionals in this area, and I really do trust them and try to trust them, even if sometimes I'm like, my title's really good. So, it was a good question.
Any other questions?
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much for coming.
I was curious when you talked about your writing process and how it wasn't organized and hear those characters. I'm very curious to know, have your characters ever surprised you? You know, they start kind of expressing themselves and then you go one way with them and
yes. I mean,
have they surprised you in a way that made you redirect?
Yes, they do every time. I usually have to rewrite half the book. Once we've really gotten to know each other and they kind of tell me their secret, I usually have to go back and fix so much. Like I'm kind of at that place in something I'm working on right now. Like a whole chunk of it's got to go. Like I just kind of realized that that's not what the story's about. Yeah, so yeah, it's.
And then from the publisher side, my assumption based on what you've said is that wouldn't have any say in this, but I happen to be a big fan of the audiobooks. And I was curious if you got any say in the narration, because each one of your books is narrated by someone else.
Yes.
And for me personally, as a listener, one of the things, not just the story, the narrator makes a difference. And there are some books that I've read simply because of the narrator. And so I just was curious about that, if you have any say in it, or if it's...
They send me a little sample, and I think, you know, if I were to say like, hell no, you know, they would find someone else. But like, I wouldn't do that. I mean, no one on there was like, you know, usually it sounds pleasant to me. So, I just don't push back on a lot of that stuff. I think other authors are different.
I just wasn't sure, you know, because I don't know the process, if you had anything to do with it,
No.
like the filming or recording, like, are you part of listening?
No,
you know?
I don't. I don't have it. I don't even know where they do that. But actually, the first book I got to pick between 3. So if you liked the narrator of The Floating Girls, she was one of 3 choices. It wasn't like I was auditioning people. They sent me a little clip, and the one person had a cold or something. So they'll say like, she has a cold right now. So if you want to hear what she sounds like without a cold, go listen to this book. Yeah. So yeah, it's like a whole thing. The voice
like
actors.
I said, I am driving around a lot. That's why I listen to the books. But I recently listened to a book. I was like, I have no idea what this book is about. But I saw the author's name and I had listened to something else, and I was like, oh, and they got this narrator back? Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and, you know, I'm like, I don't care what the story is. The two of them together work for me.
Works
So I
for
was
you.
wondering if that-
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to audiobooks, and I've never listened to any of my books on audio.
This one's great.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
I
I've
enjoyed
heard
the
that.
audio
I've
for
heard
this
that.
one, yeah.
My friend said the second one, The Night the River Wept, is too slow, and so she put it on 1.5 or something. She was like, you know, I had to speed it up, but yeah, I don't listen to them on audiobook. I should, because it is cool, and they read my book. You know, it's really kind of a neat thing. But I'm
You're
one
a
of those.
paperback.
I'm paper.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Well, you were very agreeable.
Oh well. I know.
I'm glad you were able to do this.
Thank you for coming on your Saturday.
Yes, and I want to say, so now that we know the book is good for adults and young adults, if you ask me young adults, you can go over there and visit Read It Again books. But we're going to have a book signing at this table. Bo is gracious enough to sign some books for us. So if you want to line up, it'll be that way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.